Strong Enough merch is now available. Go to strongenoughpod.com and check out all the stuff that you can get so that you'll have those daily reminders that you are strong enough, you are worth it. Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people just like you. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to share how he went from being overweight and addicted to crystal meth to now being healthier, happier, and a man of faith. He's going to share how you can take small steps to achieve your goals and get to where you want to be. Please help me welcome James Yount. James, how's it going today?
Y'all, it has been an amazing day. I woke up early as I always do. Morning routine is huge to me. It's been a big part of my recovery. It's been a big part of my growth. I woke up. Today is my oldest niece's birthday. So I got up early, went to it's the first time in 6 years I've had money to be able to celebrate her birthday. So I couldn't wait to get her a present. I went and visited her with as close to a little one-on-one time. My sister is an amazing human being, and she's also an amazing mother. And so they took her to a place. They're taking her tomorrow for her big birthday party, but they got her and like her smallest group of friends together. And so I went and met them there, and then was gifted a beautiful gift from a member of my church in a vehicle because I've lived without one. And dude, it's been, dude, God is good. God is so good.
You have had quite the day.
I really have. It's been fantastic, and I've honestly been so looking forward to this. I recorded a podcast with a man named Mark, Risen Fallen, and one with Brock. And for some reason, this one has just been like I've been so excited to do this. Because I really like what you do. I like the. I like both. Everyone's format has just been awesome, but I don't know. Maybe it's because you're a woman and most of your guests are women, and so there's I've always had strong women in my life, and so one thing I've hoped I probably never would be I've been guilty of many things, but I've tried to never been a misogynist because I was raised by a strong woman. Had a lot of her own demons to battle, and despite those, my mom has always provided and been never met anyone that's worked harder than my mom, despite a lot of her own insecurities and traumas and things of that nature. Like she's always was so, I have nothing but respect. And so I'm just excited to be here. I'm like truly excited to be here. And I hope my words inspire and plant seeds of hope and change that somebody that needs to hear them.
That they will. We both know that. We know that whoever is meant to hear this is going to hear it, and it's going to reach the right people. I do want to echo your mom's sentiments. My mom is amazing as well. One of the strongest, most amazing people I have ever met. Just taught me what it was like to dream a dream and then have the courage to go out and get it. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate
that's
what
awesome.
you're saying.
I think that's such a huge society as a whole tends to put down our dreams. They belittle them. They say they put us in a box, and it's so hard. Something I talk to my kids about is like opportunities get smaller as we age, especially if we make mistakes. And so my drug talk, and especially with my son, because he was old enough to remember what he lived through.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you know what? Opportunity isn't always going to be there. The less mistakes you make now, the easier those opportunities and the more opportunities you're going to present yourself. I'm like, the great thing about drugs and alcohol is they're always going to be there. That is always an option to fall back on. Like there's at no time in your life is there that never going to be an option, but the chances for opportunity to truly live out your dreams will lessen if that's the route you take. So I try to be honest about it without glorifying my past, because obviously uh, there was fun in it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it for as long as I did.
You mentioned earlier your morning routine, and I know that that's one of the things that's sort of the foundation of your healing journey, I would say, that
I,
started with making the bed, right?
Yes, it did. Well, it was the making the bed speech, and so even though it wasn't necessarily making my bed every day, it was doing the dishes every day. And mind you, when this started, and I was ready to start healing, or God gave me the opportunity to start healing. I needed a win. When people ask me, "How do you do this?" Instead of using a win, I like looking at it as like I was lost in the woods. I was freezing to death, and knew that I needed to create a fire, right? And so I went and found some tinder, and I found that piece of flint, and I sparked and sparked until I got something lit. And once it got lit, I protected that flame with everything I had, and I would work very diligently at not suffocating it or smothering it or putting anything on there that was too big. Uh, and that including my weight, and that's why uh, it wasn't until I was down to a size 42 or 44 and I could barely button a double extra large that I decided I would step on a scale, because I knew that where I was coming from was, if I would have stepped, I would have been so instantly overwhelmed and been like, oh my God, you need to lose like 150 pounds or 160 pounds. Like, what is, and then I would have just been like, even when I first stepped on the scale, I was not. I was hoping for about 20 pounds less than it was. So, but you're right, it is. And then uh, it was winning, getting that little win of getting up first thing and going and making sure the dishes were done, and then going and walking my dog instantly after that. And my dog was a huge part of me healing, because he became my friend. Like, dude, without my dog, I don't know if I would have been willing to walk, because I knew it was like one of those things that I knew he needed too, because A, he's already a big dog, and B, he was a really big dog because he had a really big owner, and I knew he needed it, right? And so it was in that I wasn't necessarily just doing it for me. I needed to do it for him, and that, for lack of a better term, that guilt of like, hey man, you're not taking care of your animal, who loves you unconditionally. Like, go do that. And so him and I started walking, but I would have probably, let's see, September, uh, probably 4 to 5 months sober or clean before I really started focusing in on losing the weight. But yeah, dude, and my morning routine has evolved as I have evolved, and I think something that I shared with Brock shared with me is like, you win the morning, you win the day. It
Mhm.
sets a tone, just like how I approach Mondays. Most people are like, oh, I hate Mondays. Not me, man. Like, Monday is the beginning of a new week, so whatever happened that was bad, I get to readjust, re replan, and reattack. And so I treat the mornings the same way. Like, I'm. Uh, I think as a recovering addict, and I really hate that term because I don't feel like I'm an addict anymore. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, and though it hasn't been that long. I mean, it's been 2 years, 1 month, and a couple of days at this point, um, or a few days, I guess. And I think that as a recovering addict, learning how to create like routine and habit is, addiction is habitual. Like, and so like learning healthy forms of habit has been huge for me, and it's been the way um, I go about my day is very routine, and it's very precise, and I do certain things at certain times, and if I don't do those things, especially journaling,
Mhm.
uh, I notice in my day. But like, I'm also realize that there's going to be disruptions and scheduled disruptions, and especially not having a car, I've been dependent on other people. So um, I've been lucky with work. Like, if I don't get my like some steps in, or if I need to take a moment because I'm the first person there, like, if and I need to go meditate or I need to go pray, I can find a time to go do that if I haven't been able to get that done. But I try to get up early enough to make sure. Today I was able to take longer periods of time because I have Fridays off. Um, I try to like at least have 10 minutes to journal, 10 minutes to meditate, 10 minutes to pray. and then breakfast. And like I need to do those things because it it gets all my energy in line. And I try to get, if I can't walk, I try to do 25 push-ups and 25 crunches before breakfast, just so like mind, body, and soul gets aligned. So I'm ready for the day because I've prepared myself for you know anything that could go wrong. Like I've got a foundation built, and now that foundation is strong in certain aspects and it's weak in others. But my foundation is definitely started with my morning routine. That's where my change grew from.
What has given you the ability, do you think, to have such a positive mindset? Because there's so many people that one kind of bad, inconvenient thing happens in the morning and their entire day is ruined. It's terrible. And they focus on that negative energy. And I think you've talked about it as far as living in that victim mentality. And it's just a vicious cycle. So what for you has allowed you to really flip that script and say, no, like I'm gonna start Monday positive. I'm gonna start every day positive. I'm gonna let that trickle through the day versus the negativity.
Um, well, at the beginning part of this journey, um, I was probably still in. I was maybe open to the idea of spirituality or maybe a higher power. But it was this man named Jason Redmond, and I was listening to him do his TED talk, and he said this word that I just felt: relentless optimism, right? So relentless optimism to me isn't like being this head in the clouds. Everything's just like hunky dory, overly chipper optimist. Like relentless optimism to me means like there's going to be resistance, right? Like you've got to like, I don't know, something about relentless is just like it's tough. It's like you've got to put the hard work into it, and
Mhm.
so that's really where. And I realize that it is a mindset and it is an option. But the other thing is, and this is something after I had a really profound, uh, spiritually transformational weekend last weekend with a men's group on a retreat to the beach with my church group. Like it was like 10 to 15 people, maybe a dozen to 15 people. Uh, and I've never encountered the Holy Spirit like I had that weekend. And since then, I've been thinking about it. Um, I think when you have been stripped of everything and you literally have nothing, when you are able to find the joy in the darkness, and you're able to find the joy in the displeasures of life. And trust me, even where I'm at right now, even though things are better than I could have ever imagined, there are still issues that persist, that most people would be pulling their hair out going, oh my God. I think like looking back on everything, that's where I'm able to like my faith is so strong because I'm like, dude, like it is in those sacrificial moments or in that negative space that when you can look at it and you can find that joy and you can be like okay with it and realize that you can choose happiness. Like God gave me the tools to get through it. God's showing me not just the people and the tools and how to survive it, but he's given me the strength to have the free will to be like, you know what, I'm going to choose joy. I'm going to choose to be happy because you know what's the other choice? I already know the other choice. I already know what giving up looks like. I already know what feeling sorry for myself gets me. I already know what it feels like to be a victim. I already know that outcome. That's where I have scratched, clawed, and bit and pulled my way out of, with obviously with God's help. Um, you know, but like I believe that God will definitely throw you a lifeline and multiple lifelines, but you've got to be willing to swim to them. You've got to be willing to put in that work. Otherwise, you're just going to waste those gifts. So I think that's it. I think it's really just being okay with where you're at. And I think it is, and we all have trauma. We all have darkness that we go through, and some days are bad. But they're not. But even in those bad days, there's always a moment of joy. There's always a moment of light. And then it's just choosing to reflect on that instead of it being, oh man, it was a shitty day. Well, yeah, but it doesn't mean it has to continually be shitty. It was a shitty moment. It wasn't a shitty day. It was a shitty moment.
And why do so many people, though, choose to focus on that one shitty moment instead of all the positivity that is really surrounding them if they would just open their eyes and look?
Why do people want to focus on all the negativity that, like, why is, I was actually just having this conversation. Why is the news full of negativity? Why is the newspaper full of negativity? Why does the radio talk about negativity? Why do politicians just slander each other with negativity? Because it's the easiest thing to do, right? It's it's they're the simple tools of the devil that are extremely effective. Fear, doubt, insecurities, and anger are really easy emotions to give way to. And I think um, especially as we are so much busier working more, our our we're busier working more, we're easily distracted by instant gratification, and everything anymore is instant gratification. um, I think that if we stopped and we looked, that e- for myself, and I will only try to do my best to just speak for me, I could easily go, wow, you're living in a single wide trailer with your mom, your two kids, you're I don't technically separated from my wife. Like, I haven't had a car until today. I don't make money. It'd be really, really easy to go, your life sucks. But my life sucks compared to what? You know what I mean? Like, if you were to look around, even the homeless people here in this country have it better than a vast majority of people on this planet. Like, we are so blessed and we are so fortunate. And I think if we were to just stop and look around, there's so much beauty that we get to see every day. There is some sort of great kindness, there's some sort of great joy being given out. Or for my example today, a man from church was like, "Hey, I heard you don't have a vehicle. You shared that you don't have a vehicle. I have an extra car laying around. Do you want to use that?" Like, that is a beautiful, not only blessing and gift, but that's the beauty of humanity that exists and is existing for people every day all over this country. But we choose not to focus on that because it doesn't sell. It doesn't sell, and that's sad because um, we often get lost in the negativity. And there's, even as hectic and scary as this world can seem at times, there is so much beauty and so many great people, and you do a great job of bringing uh, amazing stories of resiliency and strength and courage and joy and light to this world. That, like, if you can't see that, then you need to do some serious self-reflection and go, you know what, maybe I need to change my mindset, and it isn't everybody else that sucks. It's me who's being lost and stuck in this negativity. Because there's countless things to be grateful for. If you live in a house and you can go to your faucet and your water is running and it's clean and you can drink it, well, like, that in and of itself is amazing. If your eyes open today, I think, like, because we take so much for granted, especially in this country because we have it so good. But, like, when you have escaped, and I don't mean just talking about the suicide attempts. I'm talking about just the where I was living and being over 350 pounds, and using large amounts of crystal meth, and my diet of consisting of nothing but food that should have given me a heart attack. When you have escaped death, be it from my situation, or you survived cancer, or you were shot, or whatever, when you have been on death's doorstep, and you have been surrounded by the darkness, you understand what a gift your eyes opening are each day. Because there's a million people in this country whose eyes didn't open today, and that in of itself is a great way to start. Like, wow, your eyes are opening, you're reading something. Like, dude, be grateful. Be happy.
What was it for you, a little over 2 years, a month and a few days ago? What was it for you that made you feel like it is time for me to change? I've got to do something. I've got to be different.
To be honest with you, uh, I was listening to a friend uh, on a podcast, and he said he talked about COVID and having to like be locked in it and have to just really be reflective of himself. And I hadn't really thought of it, but it was COVID. COVID helped as everyone else was ready to lock down. There was a point in time in my life that I didn't leave my four walls. I mean, I didn't even go outside for 8 months. Like I didn't go further than my convenience store. I didn't go to the nearest. I was living in a small town outside of other small town where we had our house, and I didn't go more than 6 blocks away to the convenience store. Like I didn't go into McMinnville for 5 years. So it was COVID, and now this is something that has kind of been a new revelation. I think it was the fact that my kids came home and I was really forced to be a dad or the or some sort of form of dad, but then like really having to look at not just the own condition of my own life and my own mess, but the effects of my lifestyle on my children and the way they were living. And I was like, I was, really having to deal with it every day because before that, they'd leave, my wife would leave, and then it was just me and my dog. So whatever I did with my day didn't really matter. If I sat around and just smoked meth and painted and dinked around on my computer all day and didn't go anywhere or talk to anybody, it didn't matter. But then being forced to have to be uh, a dad and have to deal with that whole aspect every day, it really made me start to be like, okay, you got to change. And so that was uh, shortly after my son's 13th birthday. And I was like, okay, something has to change. And I was trying to wean myself off. And then it was on my 40th birthday. I was sitting in my bathroom getting high, looking at the filth that I was living in. And mind you, we had a really nice house, but it was not a nice house. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it was tainted by my sins and the demons that had possessed me. And I truly believe that I was possessed, and we can get into that if we get there. But I was looking in the mirror, and not only was I like 350 pounds, and I just had no idea whose reflection was looking back at me. Like I had no idea. Like, and I mean, that's funny about a spiral is you don't really realize how tight and to the bottom of it you are as you're going down until you are really down. And I'm like, okay. And it was on my 40th birthday, which is August 20th of 2020. I said a prayer in vain. I was just like, God, if you're there and you can help me get off this, like, I don't know if it's going to get better. I don't know if this is going to be any answer to anything, but if you help me get clean, like it's a good place to start, right? Like, obviously, like you cannot be a meth addict and uh, have a healthy life. And so 1 month and 2 days after my 40th birthday, I threw and broke everything, and I instantly regretted it. Like I flushed my dope down the toilet, and I was like, "Oh fuck, what
Ah.
did I do?" Yeah, you know what I mean. And then I was just like, "All right, I guess this is it." And since then, I've been drug free, and so that was it. I realized I was a gluttonous monster that I had no idea who I was, and I was just like, okay, I need to change because I realized how close I was to not only losing my own life, uh, but how close I was to losing my children, like everything I loved, and you know what I mean. And like I shut myself off from everything, like emotion, like uh, I felt like I was everyone's problem, and that's why I tried taking my life twice. But that was it. I mean, part of it was the weight, part of it was vanity. Um, I would consider myself a somewhat handsome human being, and I was just like, "You are a monster," like that I didn't recognize. And I was like, "Okay." And I said that prayer in vain, and God heard. And I was, you always hear that it's that cry out for help, and He helped. And I think the beautiful thing of all of it is that He didn't reveal Himself to me. Uh, he did, and he gave me these little tools, but it was being able to put that puzzle piece together about 6 months ago. I was like, okay, you'd be a fool to deny that there hasn't been a divine intervention in your life. And that's kind of where that started.
So faith is a newer importance in your life.
I grew up in the church, real scary. I grew up in a really little town of about 1,500 people on a farm, and then we moved to some property after we moved off the farm. And I went to a evangelical church that was scary. That I thought by 12 or 13, I was just like, well, what the hell do I even want to do this for? I'm already like, by that time I was already well on my way to sin, and I'm like, well, and so um, the idea of God is not new to me. The concepts of the Bible are not new to me. Um, it was I started reading some Buddhist scripture because I knew that I needed something more, and then as I was reading that, and I was kind of talking to my son about spirituality. He said, "Dad, I want to read the Bible." And I go, "Son, that's an excellent idea. I think that you should definitely read that." And then he started reading it, and about 2 weeks later, he goes, "Dad, I think I found my spirituality, and I'd like to go to church." And I'm like, "All right, dude, we'll do it." And so we went to church, and I was just like, the pastor's sermon was, I think, when we allow ourselves to be humble and we remain pliable, and I'm not saying like, oh, you just are. No, I didn't say gullible. I said pliable. Um, when we are pliable and we actually openly honest and we listen to something and we withhold judgment, I found something I really needed to hear, and there was stuff I didn't like, obviously, and I'm like, okay, let's come back, and since then, it's been a leap of not a leap, it's been a steady climb of growth. But like I said earlier, I was able to look at the pieces that have been given to me over the last 2 years, and I couldn't deny that there has definitely been the touch of the Almighty in my life. Um, from hearing Jason Redman's TED Talk about a year after being sober, I was still uh, equally as insane in the white noise in my head. And I don't know how, even now, when people ask, how do you stay sober for that first year? I literally have no idea because I was running around like a madman trying to find that magic wand solution to getting my wife back, getting a home, getting a car, making my kids healthy, making myself healthy, becoming financially stable, and just trying to find that one like magic bullet solution that was going to solve all these problems. And I was driving myself, and I'm sure everyone else around me, crazy. You know what I mean? And I was driving. I had borrowed my stepmom's car, and I was driving to go watch my son play football. And uh, Jason Redman's TED Talk came on, and Jason Redman's a former Navy SEAL who's now a motivational and just a fantastic, amazing human being. I was listening to his TED Talk, and our stories are very different and come from much different backgrounds. But there was something that just resonated in me. And as I touched on earlier, like the relentless optimism, um, and his ability to make the trauma that he survived and went through relatable to the trauma that I have survived and went through. And from that moment forward, the white noise slowly started to dissipate, and then there's been countless other people, uh, opportunities, um, unforeseen things that, especially the people, and I believe that God puts people together that, and I mean, Crystal, for example, that was on your show recently. Uh, What's funny is we had spoke one time for about an hour and a half one night. I'm like, she's from Gresham, which is not very far from here. Like she grew up in Oregon. Now she's living in Texas. And I probably never would have met this woman in my entire life, but somehow God was like, hey, and she
Hmm.
has been, dude, she is, uh,
Amazing.
that's an understatement. That woman is phenomenal. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for her and her ability to speak and share, and the light that she has helped my growth. But I found her through a man named Marcus Torgerson. And I found Marcus Torgerson from my friend Kenny, who is also the coach in the OA. And it is those things. And then and people look, oh, it's just the code that's written in. No, 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 no. Has nothing to do with that. It's like Kenny flagged me in a live that Marcus had done on Instagram. I watched it with him, and I was like, this dude, I I saw me in him, and I've told Marcus
Hmm.
that like when you an addict knows an addict, but you also
Mhm.
know when you, if I don't care if you've suffered some deep trauma and you've escaped darkness, you can see, especially when you see that reflection in someone else's eye. And I was like, man, this guy, I can see in his eyes. And then, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, so God started working through a bunch of other people, and I have built uh, an amazing network of in an inner circle of human beings all over the country and a couple that are out throughout the world that I have no other explanation of why these people are in my life other than God. And so I started looking at that, and then my son, I don't know, yeah, it's kind of weird. I thought, okay, my goals were, okay, you're going to get yourself physically healthy. Once I started getting physically healthy, I really went to work on my mental health, and then I thought, okay, next is going to be financial stability. That's where you're going to go. And God was like, no, it's not. We're gonna you're gonna go on a spiritual journey, brother. And so like it's remaining pliable, and I didn't fight it, and it's been amazing. It's just been like it was one amazing day and adventure after another.
I want to talk about Marcus for a second, who has also been a guest on the podcast. He does have an amazing story to tell and share. So, what is it like to be able to connect with somebody who is a little bit older than you? So, not too much, but a little bit older. So, kind of a little bit further along in his journey. How does it feel to be able to watch that happen, kind of in real time, and take the positive from that as well?
Also, if it wasn't for my mother and Marcus, I don't know if my walk with Christ would be the same, because I was just like, Mom, you gotta check out this dude. Like, he is so awesome. Like, not only do we do very similar things, but like, and this is before I had heard Marcus's whole story, and his is very intense and deeply personal, and I will not speak for him, but I was like, um, Mom, blah blah blah. And then my mom's like, but he's a Christian, and I'm still struggling with this idea. And she's all, but if he's this, I'm like, "Gee, he's like the guy that, pardon me, Marcus is a
Yes,
badass."
100%.
You know what I mean? Like, she's all, if this guy's such a badass and he's a Christian, like, why doesn't it work for you? And I'm like, shut up, Mom.
Get out of here, mom.
Why you gotta, yeah, why you gotta call me out on my shit? And so I'm like, okay. And I even now it's I always kind of struggle with giving credit where credit is due. So I'm like, okay, Mom. So I opened myself up to it, and then I was watching Marcus and this man named Rob Lewis have this amazing heart to heart, and I bawled because they're telling their stories of their darknesses. And again, I won't speak for either of them, but I'm like, okay, these two men are, I have this part of Marcus's that is part of my story, and this part of Rob's is this part of my story. And then they start getting very spiritual and talking about their walk with Christ. And I'm like, okay, that was really an eye opener for me. But you're absolutely right. It is such a gift. Um, So I had asked Marcus, let me back up. It's such a gift to be able to watch this in real time. And I asked Marcus about something kind of personal um, when it comes to the matters of having a partner of the opposite sex. And I go, man, it has been 2 years for me in any format of being with the, like, I mean, even like anyway. And he goes, well, it's been 3 for me. I'm like, well, all right, then I'll shut up. But like, and it's like, I don't even have to ask him how he goes about it, because I can witness how he
Mhm.
goes about it. And it's such a blessing. I mean, it is such a blessing. And it's not, and that's what I'm talking about. I have another mentor uh, who has an even crazy, I don't know. That's what I'm talking. These little things that are just like, had it not have been to being humbled, half of these people that are in my life, I probably a year ago definitely would have been like, no way. They're a Republican. They like Trump, and I hate these people. You know what I mean? And I would have, despite of
Mhm.
whatever their past was, wouldn't even have been willing to listen because of my own preconceived notions of what I thought about them. And then I also have this amazing mentor because I did try to get sober about the time my son was born or
Hmm.
around that ballpark. So 15 or 16 years ago, I tried, but again, I was I'm still horribly immature for 42 years old. I mean, I often joke like if I ever find dick and fart jokes not funny, like it's time to chuck me in the grave. Like like I'm I'm a 6 foot 195 pound boy when it comes to my sense of humor. But um, my mentor who lives locally, and he was my first sponsor. I had this really hard time because he was always so happy. I'm like, nobody should ever be that happy all the time. And of course, you're happy. You have this great job. You have make good money. And like, but I was 26 at that time, 25 or 26 at that time, but probably more 15. As far as mentality goes, I failed to see like, dude, do you see where he came from and how hard he's worked and the energy that he's put in to
Hmm.
be where he's at? And I humbled. I know now we talk every day, at least share a good morning text every day, and we have coffee, a couple times a month, and it's awesome. But I think that's just it. It's when God humbles you, and if I wouldn't have listened to the humbling and accepted that, I'd probably be dead. But when you allow yourself to be humble, you learn,
Hmm.
right? And with learning, you can create new opportunities and new expectations because being humbled means that I don't know, and there is so much that I don't know. And like I said, if I would have closed myself off because of what somebody's political opinion was or what I assumed who they were because of their financial standing, without ever knowing where
Hmm.
all I'm seeing is the end result. I haven't seen where they came from, right? And if I'm just judging off of what I see, I would have my journey would be and my walk would be so much more difficult because I have been blessed with, like I said earlier, an amazing group of mentors and friends and uh, uh, of people whose walk with Christ is stronger than mine, people who have overcome even more than I have, and their willingness to share those tools and their experience makes what I've done, which has not been easy by any, God, like I said, something I journal I don't do it as much because I've kind of moved past it. But a month ago, my last journal for 6 months, I wrote, uh, God, show me the tools, and I will pick them up and use them to the best of my ability. And God has put those tools in my life, and it has made this difficult journey bearable. But yeah, it's amazing. Like when we allow ourselves to see the miracles and the blessings that we receive, I think people often they assume that it's going to be like Christ walking on water or raising the dead. And don't get me wrong, those are amazing miracles, and I believe those things still happen. But there are little mini miracles that happen in our everyday life that we often just take for granted. And no, being able to see not just Marcus's but Crystal's as well, uh, who is even way further ahead in her journey, but seeing that those footsteps are there and having some sort of blueprint to go off of or things that I see in them that I want to emulate. And Marcus is I have 5 people in this world that I want to take things from and emulate. And Marcus's ability to just be
Hmm.
is like I deeply want to emulate that in my own life. Like that's something I want to learn from him because uh, he's got a very powerful presence without being powerful or what we perceive as
Yeah,
powerful.
that's a great way to say it, though. And those of you that don't know Marcus, go look at his Instagram, and you'll see exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So
So,
that's
yeah,
go ahead.
that was a lot. I mean, that was a lot to dive into. Um, I want to talk to you a little bit about mental health and trauma as a man. You mentioned earlier, that you have been through trauma. We know that Marcus has had some traumatic issues when he was younger, And it's really hard for men, first off, to admit having been traumatized, really in any sort of way, whether it's physically, sexually, emotionally. It's very difficult for men to even
Period.
admit that and even talk about it. So, how has it been for you, first off, to learn to be able to talk about it? And how powerful is it for you, again, to have that person, that role model there that has also been through similar things and isn't afraid to talk about it?
Well, like I said, I will only speak for myself. I grew up with addicts. I grew up in addiction. My father was 6'4" and big and scary. Um, he was never physically abusive, but there was plenty of mental and psychological abuse. Um, I learned anger and violence from a very, very early age, and something that I struggled with for a long time. Violence and anger turned into fear and insecurities that led me into drugs at 12 or 13 years old. Um, and I was in anger management because I was a very angry person through grade school. I did a lot of really horrible, but I didn't. That's what I understood of how I dealt with the situation, and so I was in therapy for that for a long time. But it was funny. It's not funny. It was disappointing, I guess, as an adult looking back on it. No one ever asked me, why are you angry? They're like, here's some tools to use if you're getting angry to help you not, throw the desk at the teacher or go run over and punch the kid in the face. But no one ever asked me, why are you angry? Um, and then through this whole darkness that I was in for 5 or 6 years, um, it was so hard. All I wanted was somebody to ask me, are you really okay? Like, but as I've learned, like I said earlier, like God is always there. God is in the valleys, and God is at the mountaintops with you. Um, but you've got to be willing to do the work, and no one is going to save you but you. Like that's the gift of free will. Um, and it is so hard to talk about. It wasn't until maybe 6 months ago that I even admitted to anybody that I tried to kill myself. And I'll tell you, you want to end a conversation with a man as another man real fast, and they go, well, what's been going on? And you go, man, I was 350 pounds, I was strung out on dope, and I tried to kill myself. And you tell somebody that, because they come at you with a preconceived notion of where you were or what your life is,
Mhm.
and then you tell somebody that, and they go, but you're better now. You know how many times I've had that conversation with people in the last 3 months because they're like, hey, how come you weren't doing this, or we saw you at, because I went through a bunch of jobs, because like I said earlier, I was still extremely crazy in my head for that first year, and I was still 300 pounds, and I wasn't physically able to do things. I was trying to solve everything at one time, and I told people, like, hey, here's what was going on, and then I say that, and they're just like, but you're better now, right? Well, o- obviously I mean, like,
Right.
the optics of the situation should show you that, like, when you saw me last, I was still basically 80 or 90 pounds heavier than I
Mhm.
am right, like, but it is, and men, I don't know where, I don't know the history of it. I don't know if it's something that's been ingrained in us throughout. It's hard for us to admit that we're weak, because we're always taught you got to be strong, you got to be strong, and it is so damaging to, in my own, and I don't want to speak for everybody because that's not right, but in my own world, my mom has trauma from her father. My dad had trauma from his father, and I don't really know much. I'm assuming my mom's dad's dad died when he was really young, and so that made him grow up really fat. So
Mhm.
there's trauma from that, and so, um, as men, something I really have tried hard not to change about myself in dealings with my peers is to not put each other down. Like, men are
Mhm.
horrible at that. Like, women can be catty and mean to each other, but men, as a joke, will, oh, you're this or you're that or you blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, that doesn't do anything but tear us down. And like, something I've heard, and something I try to repeat, is that hurt men need each other. Like, we need to help each other to repair the damages. Not only so we better men, but we're better fathers, we're better members of a community, we raise better sons, and those sons go out and create a better tribe and a better community, and hopefully all of this experience creates a better community for all of us, um, and it is. And I don't know why it's got to be so hard. I mean, even now, the stigmata around mental health is ridiculous. Like, I was talking to my mother about this, and she's dealt with some depression and mental health, and she's like, as a kid, I was so scared to say anything to anybody because I just thought I was going to get put, especially, mom's
Mhm.
almost 66. She's like, I just thought I'd get put in a mental institution because that's what the thought was, and it's so, um, yeah, it's scary to talk about. It's scary to tell somebody that, yeah, man, I tried to eat 16 Tylenol PM one time, and thank God that my heart was pumping so fast because I was so jacked up full of speed. But I puked, vomited, and shit blood for like 4 days afterwards. And I'm pretty sure that probably did some lasting liver damage. Yeah, I used to play around with putting a gun to my head all the time, just thinking, like, God, please just end this. And then one time I actually had it loaded and the hammer cocked and the note wrote. Um, and by the grace of God, my wife and kids came home at the time, and I'm snobbing. I'm like, "Oh, I can't do this." And so then, instead of being, I was such a guy. I tried to kill myself with inactivity and diet. Like, yeah, I literally was trying. That's part of the reason why I was so big. Is like, I just like, oh well, if I can't kill myself, if I make it look like a heart attack, then my kids won't have to know I died from suicide. And it's really difficult, and that's part of the reason why I have not done a 12-step program in my sobriety, because I knew I needed to get deeper. Like I said earlier, I had tried AA. I did it 9 months, relapsed, did it 9 months. I knew shortly after, like, committing to this idea of sobriety, that I needed to get to some root issues of the problem. Like, most of us who I've experienced with addiction don't get into addiction because they're in a happy place. Like, we're all addicts are running from something. I don't care if it's a sexual addiction, it's a shopping addiction, it's a food addiction. Or there's some sort of trauma, insecurity, fear, doubt, all of the above, anger, that we're hiding from. And I knew that I had to get to the base of that problem and heal that. And I think it's important as a man to share that and to say, hey, look, this is where I was, this is what's happening, and own it and not be afraid. Uh, Something I've really, don't allow people with nosebleed seats in your life to have any say in what you do. Like, who gives a flying shit, or uh what somebody who is way outside on the optics of your life has to say about you? They're not living it. They're not live. If you're not part of my inner circle and you're not part of the solutions to my problems, I really don't. Pardon my language. I don't give a fuck what you have to say about me anymore. I really don't. I mean, I've never been one to give much of an f about anything. Obviously, I probably wouldn't have been in the situations I'm in, but now it's a different level of that. I guess it's a more sincere and personal. Like, yeah, something that I've been so blessed with is, even though I'm just now really just starting to develop friendships with people locally, the friendships that I do have in the virtual world, they people hold me accountable, and that's huge. I think that is that accountability that we all need, to say, hey, you know what, you're not giving your best right now, or what's going on with you? Are you okay? I think that's something that as a society we fail to do, because there's always the optics of somebody who you can tell isn't doing good, and you go, should I say something to him? I'm not sure if I should. And it's so important to say something. Like, if somebody would have just come up to me and like, dude, you're not do that's all I wanted was somebody to put their arm around me and go, like, are you okay? And I'd have been like, no, I'm not okay, obviously I'm not okay. You know what I mean? But as
Mhm.
another man, other men aren't even afraid to do that. And that's why I'm so open to talk about this, because my whole goal with sharing my story is, if I can plant a seed of hope and change for somebody, or sprinkle one that's already been planted. But most importantly, anyone listening to this is like, you are not alone. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, you can direct message me. You are not alone, because feeling alone and like deeply alone. I'm not talking about moments of loneliness because we're all going to experience that, but I mean like that a
Mhm.
moment of like there's no one out there and no one understands. Like it might be different, but I guarantee you there's something we can relate to that I'll understand. Like no one needs to feel alone in a planet full of 8.5 billion people. Like anyway. Hopefully, I didn't ramble for too long.
You did not. One of the things that you mentioned earlier was that it's important to take small steps. And we do live in this world of instant gratification, like you mentioned, and people wanting, needing, feeling like they deserve everything right now. But life doesn't work that way, generally speaking.
Amen.
And you couldn't
No.
go from 350 to 190 in a day. You couldn't go from a lot of crystal meth to zero. I mean, maybe you could in a day, but not comfortably. Um,
No. And it
talk
wasn't in a day.
so talk about the importance of small steps and how you're still working towards the goal. And it's okay if you only move the needle a nanometer today, but you still move the needle.
Eh, and first and foremost, I still struggle with certain aspects of that because I want some stability. But there's a reason why I sent you that picture of me where I'm really overweight and I'm 350 pounds, and there's a reason why I hang on to that because sometimes I need to remind myself, not as a pat on my back or not something to hang my hat on as like, oh, like I've accomplished or I've arrived, but to be like, hey, look, for exactly what you said, it didn't happen overnight. You've put in a lot of, God's giving you the tools, you've done the work, but God didn't give you that tool. God didn't just, I mean, he could have just come down and been like, wow, here's $1 million. You're 195 pounds. You've got a sick, like, you've got all this stuff that you're working towards. Like, yeah, he could have done that. But just like any child, when we give things, um, I'll use my own. I bought countless pieces of plastic for Christmas that by less than a year later were ready to be thrown away. You know what I mean? Like when we just get given things, we don't have much appreciation for them. And um, it's important to start small and have a realistic goal. Like if I'd have been like, oh, hey, you're 350 pounds, you need to lose 150 pounds, you need to do it right away. Or if I'd have been like, hey, you're losing some weight, time to go right to the gym. Like I didn't because I knew, um, and I think the reason so many, for lack of a better term, self-help leadership programs, their the foundations, be they call it the pillars, the pyramid, whatever it is, the base of all that is always physical because it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. If you're struggling with your weight, I don't want to undermine that by any means. I never would. It's not easy, but it is the easiest part of things to change that you can do because it's the simplest, it's the easiest effort, it's easiest to control what we put out and what we put in. So it's the best place to start. Had I have looked at all that, if I'd have been like, okay, you need to lose 150 pounds, you need to change your diet, you need to start running, you need to go to the gym, you need to do this and all the things that I'm doing now, if I'd have tried to doing that 2 years ago, never would have lasted and I would have fizzled and faded away. And so that's why I think it's so important that you start small. And you're absolutely right. If you're just moving, if your best effort was 150 steps this week and you do 152 next, guess what? That's two more steps like that. And that's okay. Something I tell people all the time, baby steps every day is miles eventually. And that's something I have to remind myself of. And I will be very honest with you. There's parts of this journey that I'm just like, when, because um, I get stressed out. I'm human. I get tired. I get frustrated. Um, I'm not perfect. My financial situation is still rather difficult. Um, and there's a worry about that I hate. And we all do. But I'll tell you what, as I've been walking with Christ and I've built this faith journey, my faith has reduced my anxiety to all time lows. Like I've been a horribly anxious person my whole life. And I'm just like you said, like there's enough proof in my life that says just what you said. Just a little bit of nanometers movement of the needle every day has created waves of change. lasting change. It's like I get frustrated. Oh, you're on a diet? Like, no, I'm not on a diet. This is my lifestyle. This is what
Hmm.
I'm way past the point of dieting. Um, this is my lifestyle, and it's okay. And well, everyone will have setbacks, and there'll be days that are better than others. But the important thing is, don't give up. Start small. Make it something you can achieve. Like if you're trying to lose an obscene amount of weight, or you just want to get back, and like uh, I'm working with a friend right now, and he's a big guy, and I'm like, he has issues from being so big for so long. I'm like, okay, it hurts to walk. Let's not worry about walking. Let's just control your diet. Start with your diet, and then work on your sleeping. And then once you lose 30 or 40 pounds, try walking again. Like people underestimate how good walking is for you, and it
Hmm.
isn't hard to do. Like, um, don't feed me that line of BS that you don't have time. Like, if you don't have time, you're really that busy, park farther away in the parking lot, take the stairs. Like, you create motion in your life. The more motion you create, the easier it becomes. And motion, I don't mean just in the physical sense. I mean motion like in your personal relationships, your mental health, your spirituality. Like, just create little pebbles rolling down, a snowball effect.
We do sometimes give homework on this podcast because that's just how we roll. So I think the homework for this episode is going to be that James and I want to hear your small steps. We want to hear what's the one thing that you're going to tackle, that you're just going to start, that little piece that's going to be the growth to something bigger, that little spark of the fire that's going to turn into the big old flame. How's that sound?
Excellent. And it is. And that's something that's like, you know, I think we can get to a point where, and not and I think you start fires in each little area of your life. And there's certain parts of my life where it's burning bright enough right now that I can step away.
Mhm.
Like after church every Sunday, my son and I, we go have a hamburger and French fries together. Do I eat that stuff every day of the week? No, but it's that moment in time. Like there's I'm in a place where I'm comfortable with where I'm at physically, but it's also very important in my son's and my personal relationship to have that moment and share that. Like, um, what I recommend somebody do, like, it used to really bug me when I'm still hyper focused on my physical aspect, but not the weight loss. Like, I really
Mhm.
try not to lose any more weight right now. I'm really comfortable being about 195 pounds. Um, but it's like, oh, well, you can eat that right now. Like, no, I can't. Like, I'm a recovering at. Like, would you tell me like, oh, you can just go ahead and go do a little crystal meth? Right? No,
Just
you
a
wouldn't. Like, so
little,
don't.
it's fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Like, no, it's not fine. Like, but you like, so in this whole thing, it was literally just walking. And then once I started losing a little bit of weight walking, um, I started controlling my portions. And once I started after controlling my portions, I was like, okay, now I'm really starting to lose weight. I went on a ketogenic diet because I knew from past experience, like being heavily like, and then I was like, I got down to like, I don't know, 270 ish, 260 ish towards the first of this year. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to go to the gym. And I started going to the gym, but I was only going 3 days a week. Like, I wasn't setting unrealistic expectations for myself that I knew. And then once it was 3 days a week, I was started to run, and I really enjoyed running. But I have a problem with my ankle, and I I just physically can't. I would love, but running. But again, um, it became an addiction. I was trying to outrun my past, and unfortunately, you can't. Even with something healthy, you can't. And
Mhm.
so, I make do with what I can, and I'm in the gym 5 days a week now. I eat an extremely healthy, like high protein, high carb, low fat diet. Um, because again, it's as an addict, I have an issue with control. And one thing I can totally control, uh, I can control what I listen to. I can control what I think. I can control what I put in me, and I control what I can watch, and I control what I wear. I control my effort. And outside of that, I can't control how you react. The rest of it I can't control. But what I put in and what I put out, I can control. And so, for me, diet, exercise is a real easy for me to control, and it is for all of us. It's just are you willing to make those sacrifices? Are you willing to be uncomfortable to gain? I think that's just it. Are you willing to be uncomfortable to gain the results you're looking for? It's the process, not the outcome.
We are going to do a little disclaimer when we talked about starting fires. We are not encouraging people to start literal fires all over your life. Okay.
Yes,
So
don't do
not
that.
literal
Please.
fires.
Yes, actually, someone else made that reference one time on Instagram and got banned from Instagram for that. I'm like, oh my god, like no, please don't go burn anything. Do not. This is not like we are not Beavis and Butthead. Like
No.
we are not going like fire, fire, fire. I'm talking about creating the light in your life. How about that? The
Love
light
it.
in your life. Create the light. Be the light. Allow the light to shine in. Do not start fires. Yes, that's bad.
I love it. James, we're going to take a little turn here before I let you go. I can clearly see by looking at you that you have some of my favorite things, and that is tattoos. And I am once again in long sleeves, but I rolled them up so that you
All
can
right.
kind of see I do have tattoos. You're beating
Me
me.
too.
And you're one of the few, as I told you earlier, one of the few guests that has more tattoos than I do. So I'm stoked to have this conversation. I would love to hear, first off, what is your favorite tattoo, and whether that's like your most meaningful or it's just funny and it has a cool story behind it. What would you say is your favorite? And you got a lot to pick
Well,
from.
my favorite tattoo is probably hard to see. It's kind of like right here. It's
Yep.
a gypsy head and a dagger through it. It's probably one of my favorite tattoos. But if I can tell my all-time favorite tattoo story,
Yes.
my kid's mom is a tattoo artist. Um, she's been doing it for a long time. She used to work in a shop with two men, and one of them is a one of my best friends, and a mentor in his own right. He's 11 years older than I am. He is one of the most phenomenal human beings and artists. He actually quit tattooing to become a monk in at one of the abbeys here in Oregon, and then took care of was the curator of their museum and was their artist. Did the iconography for the church. But anyway, so this is one of my all-time favorite tattoo stories. So we're sitting in the tattoo shops. Me, the guy who owned the shop, Omar, Bobby, and this other young man comes in, and everyone is at this point in time is very religious, and he he brings in his Bible and he opens it up and he's going to start reading, and he goes, "Ah, spider!" And dude jumps and screams like shrill like a woman, and and again, please don't take this as, but like, you don't do that as a man in a tattoo shop. You know what I mean? Like, dude, we're tattoo guys. Like, we're tough. You know what I mean? And he screams like, ah! And I kid you not, this spider, like, uh, had I not, it was the size of a big pinhead. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, dude screamed like, ah! Spider, and that was a really long time ago, and it is just like one of the funniest experiences. And I've had a lot of experience in the tattoo shop. But that was just one that makes me laugh the most. And I think tattoos are excellent. They're a great expression of who you are and who you were, and I think that's a big part of the reason why I still get them. I still like all of them, even the ones that I'm not necessarily the proudest of, but they're. I always figured, like, people are like, why do you get so tattooed? And I'm like, well, at some point my brain isn't going to quit working, and I'm still going to have all these as a reminder to be like, yeah, I remember when I got that one.
That's right. What's next? What's your next tattoo?
My next tattoo, I'm gonna do an anchor cross on my thumb. I'm gonna do "Won't Quit" on my throat, and a Rock of Ages on my left rib cage. So I've already booked time for that 2 weeks from today. So not all of that at once, but
That would be a lot all at once.
I'm gonna try to do my whole rib cage all at once because it sucks because my other one's done and it. but it's like, because I got so big, uh, it's a much bigger tattoo than it originally was. Someone asked me that the other day. They're like, "Hey, since you've lost so much weight, is any of your tattoos?" I'm like, "Yeah," and like, I've never been a real modest person, so I pulled up my shirt. I'm like, "Yeah, see this? It used to not hang out this far, but like, what can you do?" I mean, sometimes it's a painful reminder, of where I was, but yeah, it's like it's a lot. I'd much rather have a bunch of extra skin than be 350 pounds and miserable and living in some darkness. So
I think, tattoos are the same as scars in that they represent where we've been, but they
yes,
don't
ma'am.
have to show where we're going.
Exactly. And I haven't been tattooed in a really long time. Uh, for me, it's been like a really long time, and I'm been tattooed a lot. Like that's as soon as I turned 18. I had gotten one before I turned 18, but we won't talk about
Same.
that.
I did too.
Uh, again, drugs are bad. Don't do
Mine
drugs.
wasn't even involved with drugs. I just went
Well,
at the
lucky
age of
you.
17 and got a tattoo. So,
um, uh, um, but I couldn't get tattooed for so long because I was in so much emotional pain. Like I
mhm.
just literally couldn't. Uh, Despite what anybody wants to tell you, tattoos hurt. like, uh, and even my friend Bobby, who I was talking about, that dude and he is like, he's tattooed. Like he is really, really like I'm a heavily tattooed human being, but I don't. Bobby's really tattooed. I'm like, we got together on my birthday, and we were sitting there going, man, this gal that was our waitress went and got tattooed by somebody really famous, and it's just like I'm like, holy cow, where did you get that done? And then she told me who she went and got. I'm like, okay, that makes sense why you. I mean, it was a beautiful piece of art, and I was like, man, I'd really love to get tattooed. It's been so long. And Bob goes, yeah, me too. I'd really love to get tattooed. And then we both go, but it hurts so bad. And this is a dude who fell asleep getting his armpit tattooed. Like, right? He's got a heart
Wow.
tattooed in the palm of his hand, like not just an outline of a heart, but like a heart colored in red. And I don't know if you've ever heard like the palms of your hands. I do not have them tattooed. The backs of my knees are tattooed, and that hurt. I got one little tiny spot that goes into my armpit, and I was just like, on my favorite tattoo, and I was just like, that's the closest I've ever been to being like showing my emotions in a tattoo shop around a bunch of dudes. I'm like, okay, we're done. Like, no more. Like, you know what I mean? And the guy who did that was an exceptional tattoo artist. I don't know if Justin is still tattooing. I've lost contact with a lot of those guys. But he's heavy-handed and moved really fast, and like he'd already just hammered and packed the color in and just touched this one little tiny spot. I'm just like, nope, nope, no more. He's like, nope, 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 no more.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
But yeah, but yes, I'm excited to get tattooed again because I feel like it's time to put some ink to this new story.
I'm excited. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, me either.
Well, James, where can people find you? You said that, people can reach out to you. You're always happy to have a conversation. So,
Um,
if people want to connect with you about faith, about fitness journey, about tattoos, if they want to go have a burger and fries with you and your son on a Sunday, where can they find you?
You can find me at Healing Scars, SKRZ, because other scars is already taken on Instagram, and just James Yount on Facebook. If you want to meet me at a burger, we're there at about 10:30, 11 o'clock on Sundays at the Roth's IGA in West Salem. They make an excellent burger, and this is a kind of a higher end local grocery store. Or you can find me on Sundays in the West Salem Foursquare Church. Um, and do please, if you are have any questions and you want to know about any of the things that Claudia just said, please don't hesitate. And remember, like you're never alone. I if you are in a spot and you need a friend, uh, I will gladly volunteer because again, the darkness can be very suffocating. And uh, if you're thinking about taking your own life, uh, I'm not a trained therapist. I can only go off from my own experience, but I will tell you that I love you and that I'm living proof that it gets better. Like, do not make that decision without at least, it doesn't have to be me, but asking somebody. Like, it does get better. Like, I know we need to wrap up, but I honestly never thought I was going to be happy again. And I have moved past happiness. Happiness is fleeting. Nice is a car salesman. I have been blessed in abundance of kindness and a joy that I can't explain other than it came from the Heavenly Father. And I'm more than willing to share that stuff because I have it overflowing in abundance.
You have been amazing. I'm pretty sure people are going to ask for a part 2. So we'll go ahead and tell them, if you're willing, we'll jump in for a part 2. James,
Amen. Of course.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just getting started. And I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to listen to me. And anyone that took the time out of their day to listen to you, both of us, much appreciated.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on social media so you'll never miss what's going on. Remember, until next week, you are strong enough, you are worth it. Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. And on YouTube, we're on the Spear Talk channel. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.